Okay, so last night was the end of week 15 of the 2023 NFL season, and I'm fucking excited for these next 3 weeks. This is the part of the season, okay, it's this part of the season and the first couple weeks of the season where I'm just like, ooh, giddy, 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 giddy. Because the first part of the season, I'm just really fucking excited to see more football, actually see shit happen, see storylines develop. And now that we're in the end of the season, we're in the really nitty gritty. People are starting to get eliminated. Playoff berths are starting to get clinched. It's getting fun. I think the phrase that the season doesn't start till Thanksgiving is attributed to John Madden, and it's kind of accurate in its own weird way. It's like, yeah, that's not till what, halfway through the season, may give or take another week or so. But it's like, yeah, this is when you start to really know who's good, who's terrible, who's on the verge of being good or terrible. And this is when the rubber fucking meets the road, and the rubber's already met the road. We're almost at the end of the raceway, and I'm in a good mood getting to talk about football. Also, the Saints won, so I feel like I'm in a good mood because of that too. Um, I will say, regarding week 14, I have notes for a video. I tried to record it a time or two, and it was like could either just never find the time, and then when I did, I just wasn't feeling it, and it sucked because there was some fun, cool shit that happened in week 14. But I'm not letting that happen 2 weeks in a row. I want to fucking talk about football. So, of course, we start on Thursday night. We start with the Los Angeles Chargers going to Las Vegas to get their asses blasted by the Raiders 63-21. And I'm so mad that we didn't get another 70 burger. So close to 2 in one season, which is fucking wild. Like, because I wasn't watching the game. I don't remember what I was doing. I don't know, maybe I was writing or I was doing something. And I was sitting at my computer, and Clay was sitting on the other side of the room playing Pokemon. And at one point, I just looked at the score of the game, and the game wasn't done yet. I think at this point it was like 42-0, something like that, because at one point it was 49-0. I just opened up my phone, I go, I like fucking gasped, and he was like, dude, are you okay? What's wrong? Like, he was so worried about me, and I appreciate that, but I'm just like, how do you lose that badly? The Raiders scored 0 in week 14. I understand. The Vikings defense is nothing to scoff at, especially these past few weeks. But the Raiders laid a fucking goose egg in the scoreboard. And then they dropped 63, not all of which was on offense. I mean, the defense was doing their job. They were getting turnovers. They were getting stopped, and twice they scored. The special teams helped out, too. I think at one point there was a blocked punt that didn't get a touchdown, but it set them up at like the 1 or the 2. So it's not like it was all on the offense, but the offense was still balling the fuck out. The Chargers had no soul. And maybe that's because of Justin Herbert being injured and not being able to play, which kind of understandable. I felt like a team that was like, look, we're fucked anyways. We're not particularly good. And our quarterback is done. Why? Why should we care anymore? And then there's Austin Eckler, who after getting a first down, like, signals. He's super happy. He's super proud. Like, he's talking shit. What? He was down, like, 48 points or some shit at that point. I don't remember what the score was. I think it was, like, 53-7 or something. No, it couldn't have been 53, because the Raiders didn't kick any field goals. Maybe it was 56-7. But it was something like that. And I was like, dude, you are getting your ass kicked. Don't celebrate. I get it. You made a play. You're happy. Your offense did put up 3 touchdowns, so you only lost by 42 instead of 63. But to quote Professor Oak, which I think is actually a line from Ecclesiastes, there's a time and place for everything. But this ain't it, Chief. But I do remember while watching this game, I said to myself, I think I tweeted it too, if the Chargers have any pride as an organization, they have to fire Brandon Staley tomorrow. I can't say anything about him as a person. I've never met him. But I remember again a Chargers Raiders game a couple years ago. I wanted that Neil game so bad. It's like if the teams tie, they both go to the playoffs. I get it, they're division rivals. They don't like each other. You don't want to go into the playoffs by a default. You want to go in on your own, and especially if you can knock out a division rival along the way, you're going to try to do that 10 times out of 10. I really wanted to see the kneel game where they just kneel every play, punt it, kneel, punt. We take the tie, we both go to the playoffs, shake hands. Maybe somehow we meet up in the AFC Championship. We probably both get bounced in the first round because we got to play fucking Cincinnati and Kansas City, but we'll figure it out. But instead, they go to overtime. And I genuinely think the Chargers win that game in regulation if Brandon Staley doesn't try going for it on his own like 25 when you really didn't fucking have to at that point. Then he called that bad timeout when the Raiders were clearly content to just run out the clock. They're like, all right, if you're trying to play the game to win, Brandon Staley, then we're going to make sure you fucking lose. And they did. Then the next year, 27-0 in the playoffs, and they lost. Classic Chargers. And I remember thinking to myself around that time, yeah, 2 years ago you cost your team a spot in the playoffs, and then this year you blew a massive lead. For a defensive coach, that doesn't look good. That doesn't look good for any coach, don't get me wrong. I'm like, your defense gave up a 27-0 lead. That's really fucking bad, dude. But they kept him. I'm like, all right. I think you should have fired him and like gone after Sean Payton. It seemed like he really wanted to go coach the Chargers. He really wanted to coach Justin Herbert. But all right, if Brandon's your guy, Brandon's your guy. And it's not even been an up and down season. It's mostly down for the Chargers, but there've been spots here and there, and there was like a good few points. Like I think around the bye week, I think there was another game a few weeks ago. I don't remember what it was. It was like this. Maybe this is when you fire him, because it's clear the Chargers really aren't going anywhere. And yeah, I mean, like it's more respectful to let him finish out the year. You know, this is a person you really like. You don't want to completely fuck him over or anything. Like, I get that. But also, if you're not going anywhere, and if you've got a guy in the building, Kellen Moore, and maybe they really don't believe in Kellen Moore, which if that's the case, that's the case. They're like, if this is a guy that we do like, maybe we kind of give him an early audition and see what he can do as the coach of this team and of our stud fucking franchise quarterback. If they can go on a playoff run, we're keeping his ass. If they don't go on a playoff run, well, let's see how they do. Let's see especially how he can coach this offense. But they're doing it. He gets a 3-week audition, assuming he's the interim. I actually don't know who the interim is. I didn't check, but I would assume it'd be Kellen Moore, but he doesn't even have Justin Herbert now, so it feels like they kind of had to do it now after that shit show. But it also feels like this is a little too late. As for neither team is eliminated from the playoffs. Fucking somehow the Chargers are still in playoff contention, but I don't feel like they're going anywhere. And I say this with all due respect to the Raiders. I don't think they are either. They've been playing really hard the last few weeks, even in games that they've lost. And I love seeing that. I love seeing it. It really does remind me of when John Gruden was fired and then Rich Bisaccia took over. And then these dudes were playing with heart. You could see how much they cared for each other. Like, this was a united front. And the same shit happened with Josh McDaniels. Oh, fuck, I can't remember the name of their coach now. I knew it was something I knew, and now it's just lost. I hope they keep him, though, because it seems like this is a dude whose players want to play. It reminds me of Dan Campbell. Like, it feels like he kind of has that energy. It was like players love him, and they just want to play for him. He motivates his guys. He rallies his guys, and it's just something you love to see. Like, I remember, was it oh fuck, what's his name, the fucking Adam Gase. It was like the bug-eyed dude. I think it was when Adam Gase was fired from the Dolphins. It might have been a different coach, and Dan Campbell took over as the interim head coach, and then the Dolphins for like 2 straight weeks blew the doors off of their opponents. Then they fell back to earth, but they had crazy massive wins because they're like, we love Dan Campbell, which is why I'm so happy to see him like get a coaching, like a head coaching position, and the Lions might actually win the fucking division for like the first time in like 30 years or some shit. That's crazy. But I want to see something similar happen to the Raiders. It's not like I'm a big Raiders fan or anything, but I guess I'm kind of rooting for the organization. Like my brother and my nephew are big Raiders fans, so I do like for good things to happen to the Raiders, you know. But also my dad's a Chiefs fan, and I don't think he could care less what happens to the Raiders. Next game, Minnesota at Cincinnati. Cincinnati won 27-24 in overtime with not a massive fourth quarter comeback, but there was still a fourth quarter comeback. Jake Browning has been balling the past few weeks. I remember watching this video about a week or so ago, and it's about like the cycle of the backup quarterback. How your backup will be anonymity, like no one knows who the fuck this dude is. Then he takes over for a week, and then like he starts playing really well. He starts balling out. Then you kind of get into the, hey, you know, this guy's doing really well. Should we make him the starter? Like, does our other guy even need to come back? His contract's expiring. Like, maybe we can trade him. This dude's younger. This dude's on a rookie contract. And then, you know, he turns back into a pumpkin, doesn't play super well. Then the fan base kind of starts to hate him, and it's like, can we get our guy back? And then anonymity, and then the cycle continues. And I was like, hey, that applies to both quarterbacks in this game. Because Dobbs isn't even playing anymore. Like, Josh Dobbs is a dude that I knew, like, nothing about. Then he was had, like, these couple games with the Cardinals where he was playing, like, really well. And then he wasn't. And then went to the Vikings. Won that game, like, came in that game against the Falcons. Barely knew the playbook, didn't even know the other dudes' names. And they won. I think they led a game-winning drive. Then I played against the Saints. Beat the shit out of them. Yeah, the Saints made a big comeback. They still lost. I feel like we got the shit kicked out of us. Then kind of after that, it's the Broncos game. Played alright. Not great. He had a crucial fumble, but I mean, the dude left the helmet. It should have been a penalty. So he did fumble it, but it shouldn't have counted. Played like shit against the Bears. Played like shit against the Raiders. And then was benched. Nick Mullins, I don't even know what part of the cycle Nick Mullins is on. Like, the reason I know who Nick Mullins is because of that whole thing when it was a few years ago. He played a game, it was a Monday night game for the 49ers. I want to say it was against the Packers. That could be completely wrong. But I remember he started a game and no one knew who the fuck he was, and he wasn't even verified on Twitter. And then it was after that game he was verified on Twitter. And Chisel Adonis, whom I probably mentioned before, I'll probably mention more. One of my favorite YouTubers. Whenever he talks about him, he always says, "Who the hell is Nick Mullins?" It just makes me laugh every time. And then you have Jake Browning, who, anonymity, I didn't know much about this dude at all. He's been balling the last few weeks. I think he had it. Did I write his stats down in this game? I don't remember if I did. I don't think I did. But I think he probably had 300 yards in this game. I know he had 300 against the Jaguars. I think he had 300 what was the game? The Colts was the game in between. I think he threw like 300 in that one too. There was a point where I was kind of saying to myself, I was like, is he Nick Foles? Where you have the Bengals, a good team, a team that's like, well, this team could maybe go all the way. Quarterback goes down, now they're dead in the water. Although with the Eagles, like that was way later in the season, like they were already in the playoffs by that point. I feel like at that point the Eagles might have dead us already won the division after that win against the Rams. But it's like a team where the pieces are all there, but without your quarterback, you're kind of fucked. But now this dude is balling. He's playing really fucking well. If they can get in, does anyone really want to play the Bengals? Can he be that dude that leads them on some kind of miraculous run like Nick Foles? And granted, I think even if he did, there wouldn't be the same quarterback controversy. I really don't. Burrow just got a massive contract. We've seen even this season when Burrow is fully healthy, he is a dog. Dude is a baller. And I feel like there's so much love for him in Cincinnati. Not that I'm from Cincinnati, but like the vibe I get is like, no, the city loves him. The team loves him. The media loves him. I don't know if that was ever really the case with Carson Wentz, or maybe it's just because of like the fickleness of Philadelphia. That was a fun alteration. But there is that part of me that goes, can they go on a run? I honestly wouldn't be shocked. Although personally, because I will actually say, and I'll talk more about this near the end of the video, I did run a playoff simulation. Not like a who's going to win the Super Bowl, but okay, like let me pick all these games for the next couple weeks and see what happens. I don't have the Bengals getting in. I have them beating the Steelers. I do have them beating the Chiefs. I really would not be surprised if they did. But I have them losing in Week 18 to the Browns. This team is just bad against Cleveland, even when Burrow is healthy. Who knows? Maybe Burrow being out will kind of like lift their curse or some weird shit. But I do think they lose to Cleveland, and with that loss, they don't end up making the playoffs. And I mean, especially if they do end up losing to the Chiefs, they definitely probably wouldn't be making. I mean, depending on other wins and losses. That's the thing with the super tight AFC is like every loss matters, but other teams are going to be losing too. And I mean, the Texans and the Houstons, the Texans and the Colts. I don't know why I wanted to call the Colts the Houstons. Like the Colts and the Texans play each other again. That is a huge fucking game. Bengals are playing the Steelers again, which the Steelers really kind of feel. We'll talk about them in a second. That's going to rack up some losses. Baltimore, Miami. That might really shake up some divisions. Because I think Cleveland's just a game behind Baltimore. Ravens haven't clinched the division yet, and it's because of the Browns. The Browns could catch them. They could potentially overtake them, which is really interesting to think about. And as far as the Dolphins are concerned, the Bills are fucking looming. They're just lurking in the shadows, man. Not even in the shadows. Like, they're just right on their asses. They're 2 games back, and they play each other once with a win already in their pocket. If the Bills win out and Miami loses one, the Bills win the division. So, anyways, I'm supposed to talk about this game. I don't really have much to say about it. It was just... I think I remember a couple times where the Vikings fucked up in the red zone. I think like Nick Mullins threw an interception like right to a dude from like the 15 or some shit. I think they also had a crucial fumble. Just the shit that you could put the game away, but they didn't. The NFC is also starting to get really fucking congested. You've got, here's the people at the top. 49ers, Eagles, Cowboys, Lions. Then there's the teams that are 7-7. Saints, Bucks, and the Falcons are right behind them both. Packers, Rams, Seahawks, Vikings. It's all super fucking close. I don't know if the Vikings are still in with this loss. I don't think they are. I think when I look like I don't know if Dallas or Philly is ahead right now. No, it'd still be Dallas because they have the better division record because they've beaten the Giants twice. The Eagles haven't played them yet. So Philly is the 5. I want to say it's the Rams at 6, and then I think the Packers at 7. Because I think they've played each other once, and the Packers won that game. So I think the Vikings play the Lions twice in their last 3 games, and I think their other game is against Green Bay. I could be wrong about that, but I think Green Bay got them the first time. So I think right now the Vikings, I think, are 8 and probably right above New Orleans. And I mean, I know the Lions are kind of vulnerable right now. I mean, we'll talk about what they fucking did to the Broncos, but they haven't looked as dominant in most of their last few games. Maybe the Vikings can get them. I think I maybe gave in my picks. I maybe gave the Vikings one of them, but I think they lose next week, which would win the division for the Lions. I think that wins it for them outright. I don't have the Vikings in the playoffs. I really don't. It could definitely happen, again, with such a congested conference, and the NFC South teams play each other a few times, which, with those losses adding up, is probably one less team to worry about for a playoff spot in the 7-7s. You can hope that if the Seahawks and the Rams have the same record, the Seahawks would just be eliminated right there based on the Rams having the better division record. And then I don't know the tiebreakers between the Rams and the Vikings. I don't think they play each other this year. Steelers and the Colts. Colts won 30-13. I looked at this game and I thought to myself, okay, the Colts are a good team. They're the 7th seed. It feels like they've kind of been in that spot all season. I know this is a good team, and I don't want to completely underestimate them. But Pittsburgh's not... I know they lost to the Cardinals, which is really bad. Then they lost to the Patriots, which is worse. But I can talk myself into that. Like, okay, that's something the Patriots do. Or excuse me, something the Steelers do, is they play down to their competition. I've seen this all the time from Mike Tomlin. I've also seen the Steelers often lose to the Patriots. Both of these things feel normal. Not good, not conducive to winning football programs, but Steelers have been a fucking winning football program and they still do this dumb shit. Surely, they can upgrade their game when playing a team right there in playoff contention. Like Pittsburgh's the 6th. You're playing the 7th seed. You're not playing scrubs. Surely you're going to play well. They did for a little bit. They were up 13-0. They scored a couple touchdowns. That's good. Then they stopped. They stopped doing anything on offense. They stopped putting up much of a fight on defense. Aside from like that hit on Pittman, it seems like Pittman is okay, and I'm really glad that he is. Yeah, I don't believe in Pittsburgh anymore. Pittsburgh's like, I believe in fairies now more than I believe in the Steelers this season. I will be dead ass. What's that phrase? This is a phrase I know specifically from Chris Berman. I don't know if it's a phrase he came up with or not. But it's the phrase that, 1 is an accident, 2 is a trend, 3 is a problem. Losing to the Cardinals, that's an accident. I mean, again, that's kind of indicative of who the Steelers have been for the past, decade plus. But it's an accident. Losing to the Patriots, also indicative. That's a trend. The Colts now makes it a problem. The Steelers are now out of the playoffs. Not eliminated. They're only a game back. Plus tiebreakers and whatnot. But at this point, is there anyone who actually thinks they can win a fucking game? Like, does anyone here think they can beat the Bengals with how well the Bengals are playing? I don't. They got them a couple weeks ago. Sure. The Steelers felt like they had heart at that point. They don't anymore. And maybe that really is just because of Kenny Pickett. He's not playing. He's injured, which, fair. I mean, when your starting quarterback is injured, your offense isn't going to be clicking as well. I knew I was going to reference Chisel Adonis again. I was watching his live stream for the Steelers-Colts game, and there's a point where he said, you know what? I am a passionate Steelers fan. This is my team. I love the Pittsburgh Steelers. I love Steeler football. As long as Mitchell Trubisky is taking snaps at quarterback for this team, I am not rooting for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is embarrassing. This is an affront to what Steeler football is, to what Steeler Nation is. And as long as he is in this game taking snaps, I am rooting for the Colts. I'm like, you know what? I get that. That's the weird thing about being a fan. I remember explaining it to Clay. I was like, here's the thing about being a sports fan. Sometimes you love your team so much you hate them. It's like, yeah, it kind of is some toxic shit when you think about it for more than 4 seconds. But it also feels right. And I'm a Saints fan. We as Saints fans, I'm not trying to speak for everybody, but I feel like I'm speaking for the majority, aren't fans of Dennis Allen. And I've heard a lot of fans be like, man, I hope I don't want us to make the playoffs, because if we make the playoffs, we're not really going to go anywhere anyways. We need to get the coach fired. We had the easiest schedule in the NFL in a dog shit division, and we couldn't capitalize. Maybe I should save this for the Saints, but I guess I'm doing it now. And I'm like, I would rather us make the playoffs, but I get it. And I've heard other people say it's like, I want but I've heard other people say it's like, look, I don't really care about us making the playoffs because of those reasons. Our next 3 games are the Rams, the Bucks, and the Falcons. As a Saints fan, I want us to beat those 3 teams. I'm like, I get that too. I really, really get that too. There is that dichotomy of like, I want us to lose, so changes get made, but also that, but I still want us to win. Because I don't want to root for my team to lose. Like, that feels wrong to me. But I can get it based on the circumstances. But I've just been talking about the Steelers. Let me say something about the Colts. Like I said, the Colts feels like they've been in the 7th seed all season. I think now they bumped up and are in the 6th. I don't know if they quite control their own destiny, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did. I know, I was talking to some Colts fans earlier because I picked the Steelers. They're like, hey, keep on doubting us. I was like, hey, maybe I should, because maybe if I do keep on doubting you guys could go on a run. But I'm like, you guys do play the Falcons at one point. I don't think it's next week. I think it's the week after. It's like, I'm sorry, I can't doubt you then, because I need you to beat the Falcons. I want you to beat the Falcons. I'll talk about it. I'm going to put a pin in this, because there's something really, to me, something really fun and interesting about the Colts and their playoff chances. We'll save that for the end, but it's really fun. I think it's really neat. Moving on, Denver and Detroit. This was 42-17. The Lions fucking feasted. It was 0-0 during the first quarter. I don't think the Lions scored. Was it early in the second? I think it was kind of midway through the second. And then once they scored, they just kind of fucking took off. And I didn't even feel like the Broncos were like, there's no heart, there's no soul in here. It's like, no, they were just getting beat. Sometimes that happens. Lions eating kneecaps, you know how it is. The Lions have not yet clinched a playoff spot. They would have if the Seahawks lost, which didn't happen. But if they beat the Vikings next week, which I'm assuming they will, Lions will clinch a playoff spot. I do believe, again, that will just full on give them the division, which would be their first in like 30 years. I really don't know what to think of the Lions in terms of like a playoff team. Like, obviously they are one. It's like, what are they going to do in the postseason? Because I've seen this team do shit like this. And then I've also seen what they did against the Ravens. Which Lions team is showing up? Because the Lions haven't won a playoff game in years. I think in decades. As long as not against the Saints. I really, really want to see it happen. I've said several times on this channel, it's like, I want to see the Lions in the Super Bowl. Again, so long as it's not over the Saints. But I want to see the Lions in the Super Bowl. I want to see them go on this crazy run. Because I think, to me, the Lions are America's team. Because I feel like, generally speaking, unless you're like an NFC North rival, which understandable, there's your favorite team, and then your second favorite team is probably the Lions. Like, they're like the Cubs. They're the lovable losers of the NFL. So, like, it's kind of nice to see them good. It's kind of fun. They've just been dogged and clowned for most of their existence. They went 0-16. You kind of want to see it happen. Like, yeah, why don't you guys be good? Dan Campbell is, like, just so well liked. People want to see him do well. They want to see him eat kneecaps and shit. And then, like, from the AFC, I mean, the Bengals have never won a Super Bowl. The Texans have never been to a Super Bowl. The Jags have never been to a Super Bowl. Like, a Jags-Lions Super Bowl, it doesn't have quite, like, the fun meme potential of, like, Lions-Chargers or Lions-Jets. It could be kind of cool. I would almost say the Browns, because the Browns are also kind of those lovable losers as well. But then there's all the Deshaun Watson shit that happened, and I mean, it's not like he's really played for them this season, so it's not like this crazy stain, but it still just doesn't make me feel that great, if I'm being honest. But there's that part of me that's like, man, oh, okay, because I know the Lions play the Cowboys, because I think their schedule is Vikings, Cowboys, Vikings. That Cowboys game is really important to me. Not just because of seeding and implications and shit, so of course super important. We know that Dallas can be a very good team, this week notwithstanding. How are the Lions going to respond to a team like that? Are they going to beat the shit out of them? Because they theoretically can. Are they going to get the shit kicked out of them? Because they very theoretically can. Or are they going to keep it close? I feel like if they can play I don't remember if that game's in Dallas or Detroit. I think it's in Detroit. If they can host the Cowboys and beat them, or at least keep it close, I'll have some faith in the Lions. If they just get the doors blown off, I'm like, yeah, probably a first round exit, maybe a second if you beat your wild card team, but as for the Broncos, again, with a super tight AFC, every loss really counts. They do have a tiebreaker over the Bills, so if the Bills don't win the division, which, I mean, yeah, there's Buffalo, I think right now is 8. No, wait, hold up. I think right now it's Cleveland is 5, Cincy is 6, and Indy is 7, because of course Indy is still somehow the 7th seed. I think 8 is Houston, 9 is Buffalo, and then it's either Denver or Pittsburgh. So Denver is still very much in this. They're very much alive. The tiebreaker over the Bills could help if the Bills don't win the division. But if they do win the division, then there's the tiebreaker against Miami, which will fuck them over. There's a tiebreaker against Houston, which will fuck them over. Some of the losses they have are looming pretty fucking large. They could win the division. I think they still can, which would be wild to see. But I mean, what are the Chiefs' tiebreakers? Like, I doubt the Chiefs would miss the playoffs. Like, spoiler alert, I still have the Chiefs winning the division, but Denver does have a shot. And like I said, like, there's something real fun and neat with the Colts. Denver We'll talk about it. Next game, the Saints beat the Giants 24-6, and that's really weird to me. I get it. The Giants aren't supposed to be a good team. They're so far over. I mean, not even like so far under 500. Like what, 5-8? It's 3 games, which is not good, especially at this point in the season. But they've been playing well past few weeks. Tommy DeVito was becoming like this folk hero, you know, the shit. And the Saints have been the Saints. I have seen them play inferior competition and lose. I remember them losing in overtime to the Giants last year. And yeah, I mean, the Giants went to the playoffs, but did anyone really think the Giants were that good? No. They won a game, but were they really that good? Not really. And I think by the time the Saints played them, the Giants were like 0-2 or 0-3 or some shit, and we still fucking lost. Actually, was it that year? Maybe it was the year before. It was either last year or Sean Payton's last year. I don't remember. No, I think it was Sean Payton's last year. Because it was a year where the Giants were bad. I remember we missed the playoffs by about a game. And if we had won that game, I think it would have been us in the playoffs instead of the 49ers. Anyways. It felt weird seeing the Saints play well. It was like we had 7 sacks. Granted, we're playing the Giants O-line. That's like 4 free sacks right there. I was like, wait, the D-line was actually like getting pressure and finishing sacks? That's pretty good. Wait, you mean the offense was scoring point? Derek Carr threw 3 touchdowns? He could do that? Jimmy Graham was in the game? We can do that? Groupie made all his kicks? He could do that? No turnovers? How? How did that happen? And why? Why did it take so long? Why did it take so long for us for that shit to happen? I can only hope this is indicative of things to come. That the Saints defense has gotten their shit together and not given up a fuck ton of points, especially early in the game. That the Saints offense has gotten their shit together and they can move the ball and they can score and not turn it over and rely on their fucking kicker. I'll be honest, when I ran my playoff shit, I had the Saints winning out. No bias whatsoever there. No, siree. But if they beat the Rams on Thursday, which they can, I don't know if they will, but they can, and then the Bucks, and then the Falcons, Saints win the division, and their reward is to host the Cowboys or the Eagles. But even then, do I feel like those teams are better than the Saints? Yeah, but playing the Eagles now looks like not that bad of an option compared to several weeks ago, and hosting Dallas is a lot better than going to Dallas, given how not great Dallas is on the road this season. Like, I don't know. Call me biased. I am. Call me biased. But the Saints could maybe win a game in the playoffs. Then go to, I don't know, let's say one other wild card win, so then maybe they could go to the other NFC East winner, and maybe, I don't know. This is why I hate the Saints. Because even after a game like this, where I'm like, yeah, we should win, we should dominate them, I'm like, this maybe gives me hope. And like so many games this season, so many seasons before, I've had hope just to be let down at the end. And like, this is, why did I get involved in sports? Why do I do this to myself? There's very little benefit to this. There's very little benefit to being a fan. Yeah, it is what it is. Oh yeah, and I should say something about the Giants too. I don't think they're quite eliminated from playoff contention, but I mean, does anyone really think they're about to play the Eagles twice? And like I said, the Eagles aren't like dominant right now, but I think they could probably still beat the Giants twice. maybe I'm overestimating the Eagles, maybe I'm underestimating the Giants, but there's that. Then we get Chicago and Cleveland. This is a game where the Browns won 20-17. I actually did write down Flacco stats. I was like, this was the Joe Flacco experience. 3 picks, 2 touchdowns, 374 yards, win. You're going to get everything. You're going to see him fuck up. You're going to see him throw great balls. You're going to see him score a lot of yard, wild shit. The Bears were up 17-7 in the third quarter. I don't remember if it was also in the fourth quarter. I think they were, because I don't think the Browns scored in the third quarter. And you could kind of feel a little bit that the Bears were like, we got this. There was one play I remember where they went for it on 4th and 1 around midfield. Justin Fields kept the ball, and he tripped. And he would have gotten it, but he tripped. And then they were short, and the Browns took over. Browns had some great plays, like Amari Cooper. There was the great David Njoku catch. I don't think that one was a touchdown. It was like a really long ball. I think there were a lot of turnovers in this game. I think both quarterbacks threw at least 2 picks, which one of Fields we'll talk about in a second. I think Fields also fumbled once. I might be making that up, but that sounds right. I think there was another 4th down where it was like this 4th and 1, and they tossed it several yards downfield and got tackled in the backfield. That might be a different Bears game I'm thinking of, but that sounds like something that happened. That sounds really familiar. The game ended on a Hail Mary. It ended with the Bears throwing a Hail Mary. It was bounced, and then it lands right in a Bear player. Like he's falling to the ground. The ball lands right on his lap. It bounces off because he doesn't catch it, hits a Browns player on the foot, bounces into the air, and then a Browns player catches it, runs out of the end zone, slides. Game. That was wild. That was a fun Hail Mary, and it's one of those you're like, man, if I'm a Bears fan, I'm sick. I really am. That is a fucking awful way to lose a game. And they're kind of in the same situation as the Giants. I think they have the same record. I think it's 5-8, where they can still make the playoffs. They're not out of it yet, but actually, it wouldn't be 5-8. It's either 6-8 or it's 5-9. I think it's 5-9. Where they can make the playoffs. It's not super likely, and it's really probably not going to happen. I mean, never say never, but it does not look good. But what does look good for the Bears is they still have more than likely the number 1 overall pick. Whatever they want to do with it. Do they want to trade it again? Do they want to swap Justin Fields for somebody? Because honestly, if I'm the Bears, I mean, Fields is definitely, these last few games, has looked pretty good. Because on the one hand, I could see the argument of okay, we actually know what we have in him, and we feel like he's getting better. Maybe if we get him a really good offense, maybe if we have a really strong-minded offensive coach who can utilize his skill set, we can use the number 1 overall pick probably for Marvin Harrison. Give him he's already got DJ Moore. We can give him 2 fucking elite receivers. We can really build something with this guy. On the alternative, we can get another guy, a younger player, rookie deal, which Fields I think is still on, should be. But we can essentially reset, trade Justin to someone who also really needs a QB. You know how funny it would be if he got traded to the Panthers? That, I don't think that could actually happen, because I don't know what fucking capital the Panthers would even have. But how fucking weird would that be? It's trade him to someone that really wants a QB. Maybe we're not going to quite get him at like the haul we got from the Panthers, but we could probably get something pretty good. I think they'll probably do that. I think they're still going to like probably fire Eberflus and go for here's an offensive head coach. I don't know who they'll pick. Bieniemy might just get promoted there in Washington. Fuck, I can't remember the name of the guy on the Lions, but I think it's like Ben something. And people seem to really like the Lions OC. Maybe he'll get a job. I don't know. Maybe Jim Caldwell. I haven't heard his name in a while, but I remember when he was on the Lions, like the Lions weren't elite by any means, but they were consistently winning games. And I think in his 3 or 4 seasons, they only had a losing record once, and I think 1 playoff appearance, maybe 2. Lions lose to the Cowboys. Lions lose to the Seahawks. I think both of those were under Caldwell because I don't think Patricia took them to the playoffs when he was there. But yeah, that's the Bears. As for the Browns haven't clinched a playoff berth yet, but I'm not worried about them. They're the 5 seed. They feel like kind of like how the Colts seem like they've been the 7 seed forever. It feels like the Browns have been the 5 seed forever. They are kind of good right now. Flacco is the best QB they have had all year, which feels really weird to fucking say, but he kind of is. Like I said, I do have this team. I don't remember if I quite have them winning out because I don't remember what their other 2 games are, but I know I have them beating the Bengals in the final game, which I think is what eliminates the Bengals from playoff contention. And I have the Browns as the 5 seed with the second best record in the conference. I don't remember if they were tied with the Chiefs for that record, but they were. I think the Ravens are 13-4, and then Cleveland was 12-5. That actually kind of sounds about accurate. Like at this point, I actually would be surprised to not see Cleveland in the playoffs. Sorry, the next game is Atlanta and Carolina. This was a game that Carolina won, shocking enough. They won 9-7. It was a game in the rain, the elements were terrible, and the offenses were worse. This is a game where Desmond went full Ritter. He threw an interception in the red zone, and I think he also had a fumble deep in his own territory. It's Ritter between the 20s is worse Ritter. But he still got a touchdown. Same shit, different day. The Falcons' skill position players not doing much. I think Drake London didn't have a catch until the 4th quarter. Bijan Robinson fumbled the ball. Actually, yeah, so it might not have been Ritter that fumbled. It might have just been Bijan. But I know Ritter threw an interception. Robinson was just not effective. Pitts, I think, only had 2 catches because, of course. The one really cool thing I can say about this game is it's kind of weirdly full circle. Because I remember saying, I think it was week 2 or maybe it was week 1, but it was when Bryce Young and the Panthers played the Falcons. I think it was week 1. I was like, I think they're going to win. I think what's going to happen is the Panthers are going to have the ball in a 1-score game, 2 minutes left, and Bryce Young is going to lead an epic game-winning drive. And it didn't happen that week. It happened this week. It was like 95, 94 yards, something like crazy like that. He led them down the field, and they kicked a game-winning field goal. And it's not even like, yeah, I mean, like, they kicked the field goal from, like, the 30 or so. It's like, no, I think they kicked it from, like, the 4. Maybe not quite that close, but, like, he led them down the field. And I'm glad to see that for Bryce Young. He has not had a great start to his career, but hopefully this is something he can build upon. And it's not like they play the Saints at all the rest of the season, so it's not like that momentum's going to hurt us. Thanks for beating the Falcons for us, Bryce. It's appreciated. And as for the Falcons, they're a game behind the Saints and the Bucks. They've beaten the Saints once and play the Saints again at the end of the year. So the Falcons, I feel like I keep seeing people be like, oh man, like the Falcons are already out of it. Like they're a game back and they play the Saints again. They're not out of it. That's why I need them to still fucking lose games. Hopefully the Saints take care of business. Like Would prefer that we take care of it and not need other teams to do our dirty work, but I can't trust the Saints, so that is what it is. Tampa Bay and Green Bay. Speaking of not being able to rely on teams to take care of our business, Baker Mayfield apparently is the first quarterback in history, which that alone is just a funny thing, because I know I've seen memes like that where it's like first player in history to blah blah blah, and it'll just say first player in history. But he's the first QB in NFL history to go into Lambeau Field and have a perfect passer rating. I think I did write down his numbers. What was it? It was 22 of 28, 381 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. There's still a few sacks. There was still a fumble. But, I mean, I guess that doesn't count because he wasn't passing the ball. And these are just passing statistics. He was balling. It was 34 to 20. It was a game that was honestly pretty close throughout. I remember the Bucs got the Packers with the 2-for-1 special where scored at the end of the first half, scored at the start of the second half. I believe it was 10 total. It wasn't 2 touchdowns. The Packers consistently kept it close, but I don't think they ever had the lead in this game. Maybe they did at one point at like 10-7 or something, but I don't necessarily want to say it's that the Bucs were firmly in control, because this wasn't a dominant win. But Baker Mayfield did have a dominant game. The Packers aren't out of this yet. They're in that 7-7 mesh pit in the NFC. I personally do have them making the playoffs still. As for the Bucs, they play Jacksonville next week. If I'm being honest, the Bucs probably win. I picked Jacksonville to win because I'm like, please make this fucking happen. But the Bucs probably win that game, which, assuming the Saints can beat the Rams, means that week 17 game between the Bucs and the Saints is huge. It might not quite be for the division, depending on other weeks and tiebreakers and shit. Maybe it could be. But it's gonna be really fucking close to being for the division. So I hope the Bucs lose to the Jags. I'm upset they beat the Packers, but I do ultimately think the Packers are going to be all right. Jets and the Dolphins. I'm going to be honest. I looked at this game and my gut said, pick the Jets. I understand the Texans had a heavily injured offense in that game. They were playing in shitty weather. But the Jets were able to win a pretty dominant game. The Dolphins against the Titans choked. It was a game full of unforced errors. You had Tua slipping. You had them stopping the Titans, about to force a field goal, that a Dolphins player gets called for taunting. 15 yards, and then the Titans end up scoring a touchdown. You have a team that was unable to finish a weakened opponent. Or, like, I don't know if I necessarily want to say weakened, because I don't think the Titans are dealing with a lot of injuries, but an opponent that you should fucking beat. You're up 14 with, 4 minutes left? How did you lose? Like, you should pick the Jets. Also, Tyreek Hill. He's either out completely, or he's going to be severely limited. Yes, the Dolphins have a really fucking good run game. But also, I mean, probably one of the things that really helps that run game, aside from, their scheming and their players and everything, is the fact that you also have to deal with Tyreek Hill. So you can't commit a whole bunch of dudes to the box. And yes, they got other players too. Jalen Waddle's really fucking good. Tyreek is really what makes that offense hum. You take him out, and you factor in how good the Jets' defense is, and even what happened on Black Friday. Yeah, the Jets got their asses kicked. The defense still played well. Like, they forced 2 interceptions from Tua in 1 quarter. They can win this game. They can do this. They didn't. They lost 30-0. And just watching this game unfold slowly but surely, I was like, okay. So it's like, okay, the Dolphins scored first. It's probably going to happen, but it's not over yet. Okay, I mean, it's not over yet. Oh, I fucked up. Not, don't get me wrong, I'm not like putting money on any of these games or anything. But it's like, I have to sign for that L. The Jets are eliminated from playoff contention. It is definitely a season of what ifs for the Jets. The Dolphins aren't considered, or they don't give a shit about what ifs. They're only thinking about their own future. Their future does not look good. Their next 3 games: Dallas, Baltimore, Buffalo, who's already beaten them once. I really don't know. And it's not like I am trying to doubt the Dolphins. Dallas is a really good fucking team. Baltimore's a really good fucking team. And Buffalo's really gotten their shit together these past few weeks. Can the Dolphins win those games? Yes. I don't have them winning any of them. Because I think the Dallas game is in Dallas, where the Cowboys have been unstoppable. And I feel like after the ass kicking they just received from the Bills, they're going to play a very, very angry Cowboys team. Now, the Bills were able to dominate the Cowboys by running the ball. I expect to see a lot of running from the Dolphins. I do think the Dolphins are going to give them a fight, but I think the Cowboys are going to win. Against the Ravens, again, I think the Ravens are just overall the better team. I think their defense is really going to do some damage to the Dolphins. Then it's all on the Bills. At that point, if the Bills win their next 2 games, that game is 100% for the division. I mean, actually, at that point, if the Dolphins lose 2 and the Bills lose 2, the Bills win 2, Buffalo would just be up. They'd be up 1. If Miami wins, they'd be tied. What would the division record be? Actually, no, Miami would take it then, because Miami would have the better division record, because I'm assuming they would sweep the Patriots and would have swept the Jets, which the Bills didn't do. So that game 100% would be for the division. And I do think Buffalo would win it right now. And even with all that said, Miami could still make the playoffs. Now, obviously, they very much still can. I could get any number of those games wrong. But even if I'm right about those 3 Dolphins games, they can still make the playoffs. Again, funny shit can happen. Yeah, and the Jets are out, like I said. Kansas City and New England. Kansas City won 27-17, which I remember I was watching the highlights from this game, and there's a point where I started laughing really hard, and my roommate's like, hey, but what are you laughing at? I'm like, both teams on their opening drives missed a field goal. That's just funny to me. And it's like, yeah, I think that's the first kick this season that Butker missed. And then, the Patriots, anything you can do, I can do better. And then they fucking, sorry, I did that. And then Muhammad immediately turned his head to see what I was pointing at. The Patriots scored 17, which is kind of sad because in several, maybe not several, but at least 3 games in this season that would have won it for them. Here it didn't. The Chiefs were able to play offense, and even still, Kadarius Toney bobbled the pass that got intercepted. I feel like Kadarius Toney should feel really, really lucky that he was on the Chiefs last year, got that Super Bowl ring, and had that record-setting punt return in the Super Bowl. I think he caught a touchdown in that game as well. Because he at least had, I mean, it's the NFL, it's what have you done for me lately? He can at least look back and say, I've won a ring for the team, and I helped. I genuinely contributed. It's like, there's a reason you guys keep me around, because you know what I can do. He can also drop passes, bobble passes that get intercepted, and line up offsides. It's the KT experience. But the Chiefs won. I fully expect them to get the 2 seed. I don't know what the fuck they're going to do in the playoffs, because it's the Chiefs. They're going to at least have 1 game at Arrowhead, probably several. I mean, as the 2 seed, there's literally no way that you would fight the 1 seed in the second round. So they would host at least 2 games at Arrowhead, assuming they win the first one. Then, depending on what happens to the Ravens, assuming the Ravens are the 1 seed, which I feel like for me that's not a huge assumption. I don't even have them winning out, by the way. I do have the Ravens losing to the 49ers. But I still have the Ravens at the 1. The Chiefs might just chill at Arrowhead all postseason, where they're really hard to beat. It can happen. The Bengals have done it in the playoffs. The Patriots have done it in the playoffs. But it's not easy. And even a team like this, or like the offense is just not clicking and is at times beating themselves, that is a very good defense, a very good quarterback, tight end, and head coach. You want every advantage you can. As for New England, yeah, like they're eliminated. They've been eliminated. I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen with Belichick. There was something I remember several weeks ago, I was like, dude, he's done, he's gone, he's going somewhere else. Then there were reports of like, no, they've hit a deal, they're good. I'm like, oh, okay, sure. Never mind, stop the speculation. Now it's come out a few weeks, again, in the last couple of weeks, they're like, no. I guess it was after the Colts game in Germany that they're like, after this season, he's gone. I don't know where the fuck he's going. I don't know if they'll go to the Chargers. I don't know if he'll go to the Bears. I don't know if he'll go to the Raiders. If he goes to the Raiders and then Tom Brady is the owner of that team. Not the majority, but an owner of that team. That's just funny. The Giants are kind of rebounding, so I don't know if they'll fire Dable. Belichick could maybe go to the Giants, though, if they do fire Dable. I don't know. Maybe they'll take over Washington. I mean, Carolina has an injury, but, like, I don't think he'd go to Carolina. Like, they don't have a first overall pick, and this team was dog shit. Why the fuck would I go here? I don't know. I don't think he's done. I think Belichick is like, I want that head coaching record. I want the most wins. I don't know how many, I know he's at 300. Is it like 301, 302, maybe 303? No, they haven't won that many games this season. I think it's 301. I don't know how far behind he is. I feel like he would need either one really good season or 2 to 3 mediocre seasons to get there. The Patriots, I don't think are going to do that for him. But he can probably find something somewhere. It's Bill Belichick. He can definitely find something somewhere. I'm just not sure where it's going to be yet. But there are definitely some fun options. Houston and Tennessee. Houston won 19-16 in overtime. The Texans are resilient fuckers. And I kind of love it. Like, quarterback not playing, top 2 targets not playing. I think Dalton Schultz was limited. He still had to make a monster fucking catch at one point. Tennessee is not great this year. They're not completely off. At least it feels like they're playing better with Levis under center. They at least seem to feel like they have some hope or some spark. I still remember that play where Levis gets hit from behind. The ball is caught before it hits the ground. It's an interception, but I don't even know if he threw it. It might have just been a fumble that was recovered like an interception. Then Levis runs, forces the fumble on the dude that picked him off, and then recovers the fumble. It's like, dude plays with a lot of energy and a lot of heart. Also, they were wearing the Oilers jerseys, and I'm just a real sucker for the Oilers jerseys. They were using it against Houston. It's like, yes, it was the Houston Oilers, but the Oilers are the Titans, but it's still Houston. So Houston fans were not fucking happy. I remember this was also a game where if the Titans had made an extra point, they would have won, and it wouldn't have won into overtime. But it's what it is. They had chances to win in regulation. They had chances to win in overtime. They couldn't. The Texans did. Texans are still in that playoff hunt, and that Colts game in Week 18, depending on how other things go, is going to be really fun. 49ers and the Cardinals, they won 45-29. Is that 29 or 24? I think that's 29. What is there to say? If the 49ers won the West, the 49ers are a really fucking good team. They are dominant. The Cardinals are not. The Cardinals missed the playoffs. Pew, pew, pew. Washington and the Rams. Rams won 28-20. Kyron Williams, despite his 2 fumbles, fucking feasted. It was like 27 carries. I think it was 200 something. No, it wasn't 200 yards. I didn't write it down like an idiot. But it was like 100 something yards. I think a couple touchdowns. Kupp had this wide open touchdown. The Commanders at one point had the ball at like the 1 yard line. It was like down 14 with like 4 or 5 minutes left. And it took them like 8 plays because of a penalty. It took them like 8 plays and 3 minutes or so to finally score. It was really bad. It's like, yeah, they had no time after that, kicked an onside kick, didn't recover it, and then they lost. Washington's eliminated. Rivera's gone at the end of the season. There's no way he's staying. The Rams are still on the hunt. Really hope the Saints beat them. I do think the Rams are going to beat the 49ers at the end of the year. That's just, these teams always play each other close. And I know the 49ers, that playoff game notwithstanding, the 49ers usually win. I'm like, they always keep it close. I'm going to give one to the Rams. I'm going to give them this one. I don't remember if they're in the playoffs or not. I think in my current projections, I don't have the Rams making it. But I think they're the first team out. Because at first I ran the projections with the Eagles beating the Seahawks because that game hadn't happened yet, and the Rams were in. Now that, weirdly enough, now that the Seahawks won, the Rams are out, even though the Rams have that tiebreaker. Weird, but is what it is. Dallas and Buffalo. Buffalo won 31-10. And Josh Allen barely did anything. They just ran the ball. James Cook dominated. I remember I was watching the game and there was a stat at one point like, yeah, total yards by James Cook, 196. Total yards by the entire Cowboys offense, 92. He's outgaining them. He has over double the yards of their entire offense. The defense couldn't stop shit. The offense couldn't get shit going. It was embarrassing. The Cowboys had their souls taken, their lunch money stolen, their fucking pants pulled down, whatever you want to say. They got their asses kicked. Not as badly as the 49ers did, but they got their asses kicked. I'm not worried at this point. Like, I should be, maybe. I'm like, no, this is still a really good team. They're still in the playoffs no matter what. Like, they have clinched a position just like the Eagles have. They're either the 2. I mean, I can't say they're either the 2 or the 5 because if they lose to the Lions could end up being the 2 and the Cowboys could be the 3 or the 5. So that's their position. They're 2, 3, or 5. I don't know for sure if they'll win a game. It's the Cowboys. Like, that's the real thing. My concern was not are the Cowboys making the playoffs. My concern is what the fuck are they going to do when they get there? Because I've seen this unit, more or less, this core. I've seen them win playoff games. I've seen them lose playoff games in increasingly hilarious fashion. They're kind of like the Ravens to me in that regard. And I think I've said that a few times this year. I know how good they can be, and if Lamar is healthy, I feel like the Ravens are going to be in the playoffs. And what do you know? Lamar's healthy. They're the first team in the AFC to clinch a playoff berth. What are you going to do with it? Because with this team, that is the question. And I can't answer that yet. Yeah, I think that's kind of it for that thought. I guess the only other thing to say about the Cowboys is if the Eagles win out, I think they still take the division. I don't remember if I have the Cowboys losing another game. Like, they play Washington one more time, I have them winning. I have them beating the Dolphins. I think I also have them beating the Lions. I could be wrong about that, but I think I have them beating the Lions. I think I have both the Eagles and the Cowboys winning out, and the Eagles still take the division, so there's that. So I think Dallas is going to end up in the 5. I mean, they play the 4 seed, which is either the Falcons, the Saints, or the Bucks. They probably beat whatever team that is. Tampa's been playing pretty well right now. The Saints are looking like not total shit right now. Well, we'll see what happens. As for Buffalo, yeah, Buffalo's fucking cooking. I think if Buffalo makes it to the postseason, they're going to the Super Bowl. I'm going to just be dead ass and say it. A team going through that much adversity, like all these tough teams that you're playing, if you get through that gauntlet and are still standing, I don't think they can be stopped. And yeah, like I've said, I do have them winning the division. Baltimore and Jacksonville. Baltimore won 23-7, and the Jaguars have no one to blame but themselves, except maybe the refs. You're losing by 16 points. They missed a field goal. They make that, you're losing by 13. They missed another field goal. You make that, you're losing by 10. Trevor Lawrence, in field goal range, fumbles the ball. He's running, he just drops it. You make a field goal there, maybe not even a touchdown. You're down 7. At the end of the half, completely bungled the management of that possession. You kick a field goal there, you're down 4. And if that Calvin Ridley touchdown is called as such, because I think it was, it's really close. I do think the shin was down before anything touched and he had possession. You're now up 3. Yes, the touchdown is not completely on them. Although, I mean, if Calvin Ridley had caught it cleanly. So even still, it's unforced errors is why they lost. They're still winning the division at the moment. They haven't clinched anything. Houston is tied with them. Actually. No, yeah, because I think all 3 of them have the same record. All 3 of those teams are 8-5. They have the sweep over the Colts. And I really don't think the Colts give a shit. Their next 3 games, Tampa, which I'm picking them to win. I do have the Jags winning out because I'm like, I need them to beat Tampa. So I'm picking it to will it into existence, but I don't know if it'll happen. The Panthers, I think they beat the Panthers. And the Titans, who I don't think they can completely overlook, but I think they beat the Titans, and they win those 3 games, they win the division. I think that does happen. I don't know what happens if they lose to the Bucs. Maybe, I don't know if that'll quite cost them the playoffs. But really, depending on what happens with those other 2, it really maybe could. And I feel like it's just kind of on them. As for the Ravens are the first team to clinch a playoff berth in the AFC. They do kind of look like the best team in the AFC. The offense can click and dominate. The defense is really fucking good. Justin Tucker isn't as reliable as he used to be, but he's still a pretty fucking reliable kicker. They play the 49ers next week. They play the 49ers on Christmas Day, a prime time Christmas game. Not the only one. There's, I think, Chiefs Raiders are on Christmas, Eagles Giants are on Christmas, and 49ers Ravens. We might get a Super Bowl preview for Christmas, and that's kind of dope. I do think the 49ers win that game, but I think it's going to be a fun one. As for their other games, then they play the Dolphins. I have them beating the Dolphins. And yeah, I don't have Pittsburgh winning any games the rest of the year. I have them beating Pittsburgh, which will give them the number 1 seed. The last game I watched yesterday was Philly and Seattle, where Seattle won 20-17. Matt Patricia's defense. So it's like on the one hand, I'm like, you know what? Maybe that's exactly what they needed, because the Eagles' defense the last few weeks had more holes in it than SpongeBob. But at the end of the day, on the drive that mattered, as even Joe Buck said, it's like, look, it's 1st and 10, but the Seahawks need a touchdown. This is 1st and 92. They need 92 yards. They need to win this game. And they cruised down the field. The Eagles' defense, which hadn't exactly been like dominant all game, like I'd seen the Seahawks move the ball. They've like might as well have not even fucking been there, man. It looked easy. The one thing, though, is that first interception, Julian Love, as I think was his name, he had 2 picks. The first one, it was clearly pass interference. Like, he's grabbing the dude's jersey, pulling him down. It's like that's very clearly PI. It's a great play by him, like, to actually intercept the ball, but that should have been PI at what, like the 5? Because I don't think they were in the end zone at that point. Maybe they were. Eagles probably get at least a field goal there, which ends the game. But even still, the Eagles had chances. They had the ball with a few minutes left. They were killing the clock. If they got a first down there, they would have won the game. They didn't. They could have stopped the Eagles on defense, and then they could have stopped the fucking Seahawks on defense, but they didn't. And then they had a chance to go down the field and kick a field goal. Second interception to Julian Love. And that was a phenomenal fucking play. At first I didn't think it was. Like, watching it in real time, I was like, oh no, there's no way he got his feet down. And then watching, I was like, yeah, he didn't get his feet down. Oh my god, he did. Because I didn't see the first foot at first. It's like, I thought it just kind of like hit the back of the other dude's foot and then never touched. Like, no, it touched. That is a phenomenal interception. Holy shit. Drew Lock led a 92-yard touchdown. Like, oh, drive. Holy crap. On the one hand, I'm like, the Eagles are fine because they're still in the playoffs. Like, they clinched a playoff spot. And I think they're going to beat the Giants twice and the Cardinals in the middle. So I think they're still going to get the 2 seed. But they really don't feel that scary anymore. The Seahawks ended their 3-game losing streak and gave the Eagles a 3-game. No, it's not a 3-game losing streak to the Seahawks. It was 4 because it was the Rams. It was Rams, Niners, Dallas, Niners. I just realized I keep saying, I rarely call them the Cowboys. I just call them Dallas. I'm not doing that on purpose. I just kind of like the sound of Dallas. You know, there's something that sounds a lot more regal and kind of badass about it. It's not like I like the Cowboys. I'm not trying to give them that. It's just, I like the way it sounds, you know. The Seahawks needed that. They really, really needed that. But let me talk about playoffs. Because, like I said, I ran some shit. Starting in the AFC, so it's like, with all the games that they went this week, kind of like, all right, this, blah, 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 blah. I have Baltimore in the 1 seed, winning the North. I have Kansas City at the 2, winning the West. Jacksonville at the 3, winning the South. And Buffalo at the 4, winning the East. Cleveland is the 5 seed as well, kind of no matter what in my predictions. Week 18, Houston and Indianapolis. I'm very not sure about this one because I'm like, man, the Texans are a resilient bunch that can win this game. The Colts, though, are like the great underdog story of the season. I don't know who's going to win this game, and it has massive implications. Whoever wins that game is the 6th seed, and the loser is out. The 7th seed varies. If Indy wins, the Dolphins end up getting the 7th seed and are managed to be in the playoffs despite losing their last 3 games. If Houston wins, the 7th seed is actually the Broncos, which is wild to me. Like, I don't even know how those tiebreakers happened, but some fucking how the Broncos, despite losing by 50 to the Dolphins, take their spot. And as much as I have said, I want so bad my Broncos-Dolphins playoff matchup to get a rematch of the 50-point game, the fact that potentially the final playoff spot is between those two and the Broncos could take it is really fucking wild, and I kind of love it. Moving on to the NFC. So before the Seahawks-Eagles game, I ran my projections, and they were a little bit different. Because I had the Eagles winning. The Eagles were the 1 seed. The 49ers were the 2, because I had them losing to the Rams at the end of the year. Lions were the 3, Saints were the 4. 5 is Dallas. 6 was Green Bay, and 7 was the Rams, which was really cool to me. I'm like, the 2-7 matchup is a divisional one. The 6-3 is a divisional one, And assuming the Cowboys beat the Saints, which they probably fucking will, and no other wild card teams win, we could get a divisional matchup between the Cowboys and the Eagles, which is also like a round 3. That's really fucking exciting and interesting. I kind of want to see. I don't want to see Dax at the Saints' expense, but like this is a really interesting playoff field. But now that the Seahawks won, it ended up being a little different. 49ers now at the 1, Eagles at the 2, and then Lions, Saints, Cowboys at the 5. Now the 6th seed was the Seahawks, and the 7th seed ended up being the Packers. So it's so close to being a round 3 in the West and a round 3 in the North. Instead, it just doesn't happen. I'm like, I don't know though. Like Packers Eagles sounds like kind of a fun playoff game. Seahawks Lions. That's a rematch of a game this year and a game last year that was essentially for a playoff spot. That's kind of fun. And then still, Cowboys Saints. So that's what happened this week. Those are my playoff predictions. I'm excited to see what happens. Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm completely wrong. We'll see. Like I said, I'm really fucking excited.